Hey everyone, Luke here, and welcome back to What's the Difference, the series where I talk about the differences between anime episodes compared to their manga counterparts. Now, last week we did The Promised Neverland, and this week we're doing, again, The Promised Neverland, but we're doing episode 3 now. Few things I want to say. Number one, I don't hate the anime, and if anybody else likes the anime, that's fine with me. I'm perfectly fine with that. I just want to make that disclaimer right at the beginning that I don't hate it. I'm just, as a fan of the series, as a fan of the manga, I'm just giving out my own personal opinions on why I think the anime isn't doing the manga really justice as much as it could do. I want it to do well in my eyes. I want it to have all of those things that make the manga that much more captivating for me personally, but I'm sorry, the anime is not doing that at this moment in time. And perfect example is again with not revealing that Isabella and Crone at this point are members of the actual were actually counting themselves. Now there is a point that I feel like just actually removes that, makes it feel pointless, and that's kind of a disappointment, and we'll get into that when we get into it. But for right now, let's just get to the intro. Now, with this episode, I wasn't as enraged as the last episode. What needed to be included in the episode, I felt that it was included and it was done really well. And we'll get into it when we get into it. But first things, I want to just talk about the opening, because again, they're just adding anime filler scenes, and if it doesn't serve a purpose to enhance the story, then why add it in? But the filler scene I'm talking about is the scene where, at the beginning of the episode, where Mama is showing Crow to her room, and it's on the same level as the kids. Now, this may enhance the story, or may not, depending on which person you're speaking to, because it's supposed to be it's supposed to show that Crow is on the same level as the kids, so that she can actually observe them and notice if anything's going wrong with them. But again, the Emma, Ray, and Norman are speaking out loud without really having some inner thoughts about it, and that's a bad move because they're speaking out loud. People can hear them and things could go south really, really quickly. That's the one thing about this scene that I feel like is really it's really just lacking, the fact that there's no inner thoughts, and the whole series as a general, no inner thoughts, and they're just having to speak out loud, which adds problems later on. Now, when it comes to the conversation about the trackers, Norman in the anime says I instead of we, and that's kind of a bit of a disservice to Ray and Emma, because they're just as guilty for not actually figuring this out themselves, that they were so focused on the trackers that they didn't even consider the fact that another adult could come in, and it was just like, it just was all down to Norman when Emma and Ray were coming up with these ideas and these possibilities themselves as well. So that's one thing that I've just wanted to bring up, with the fact that you've got to include Emma and Ray in this, because they're the main characters, Emma, Ray, and Norman. So you can't have one without the other, and it's like they've got to all be contributing in some regard. Now, one thing that I will say as well is that because the conversation about being distracted, like the whole thing, like the whole of chapter 5 pretty much being cut out, kind of removes the fact that Norman understands that why they were being distracted and why they were being forced to do all these chores, and it takes away the fact that he has a line in the manga, which is right here, this one right here, where he says, "I've already lost to Mama," and again, cutting this out was actually a bad move, because it shows that a lot of more complexities, and the fact that they're able to lose as well. I mean, we already established it was already established, but the fact that themselves are like discovering this and really adding to their characters, the fact that they lost and they had to take a loss, just adds more to the complexity of the character. Like, they're not all perfect. They may have 300 perfect scores, but Mama is just driving it in that she is better than them because she raised them. Another thing that I've discovered about the episode, which I think is for the worst, is the fact that the whole conversation about Sister Crone and Carol and that lot, and what the trackers could possibly be, or where they could possibly be, is actually moved to indoors into that library section. And I feel like this is a bad move because they're in a tight-knit environment. It means that anybody could just walk in at any point and be like, so you're talking about demons and escaping. Oh, okay, we're gonna ship you off right now. The fact that it was outside and they were away from everyone just helped to add to the fact that, okay, they're in secret and they can actually talk out in the open without the worry of people just walking in on them at this point. I mean, that could have happened in the manga as well, with them being out in the forest. Like, anybody could just walk up on them, and it has been shown at times that actually could be the case. But again, the fact that they're in a wide open space and they could be absolutely anywhere, rather than being in a tight knit space where they could be in limited locations. I just feel that's a bad move, and they shouldn't really be talking about this out loud in that tight knit space. Now, this little bit, I don't know whether it was cut out just for like simplicity's sake, just to like make the scene flow a lot better. Although I think that was the case as well, but still, it's a difference from the manga, so I'm going to include it here. So the scene in question I'm talking about is the little scene with Don, Gilda and Phil, and how they're outside and they're all playing. They're like, oh, where's Emma? Oh, and Phil's like, oh, I want to play with Emma and that. And you get like little bits of Gilda just like being just quiet and just thinking like, something is going on here. Now, we get that throughout the episode. I'm not saying that they don't add that stuff in, but the fact that we got it there just again adds to the foreshadowing. Like, Gilda knows more than what Emma, Ray, and Norman think that she knows, and they don't even have to like just hammer that in. I feel like they hammer in a bit too much in the episode, and that's the sacrifice of including chapters 6, 7, 8 and 9, like just 4 chapters in the whole episode, just crammed into one. Now, I understand why they did it for chapters 8 to 9, because that's mostly where the tag game is, so they can easily just, because that's more action oriented, so it was much more easy on their part to just include those 2 chapters. But the fact that they just kept hammering in again and again and again that Gilda is just being like just in thoughts about what's going on, again, it just feels like they're just getting rid of foreshadowing, when all they needed was just one scene at the beginning with Gilda going and then one scene at the end with her going Also, another trend that's been carried over from the last episode is the inclusion of things that weren't in the last episode, but they make us seem like they were in the last episode. And for example, the perfect example is the date 2015. The fact that Ray just mentioned that date out of nowhere has no context unless it was included in the last episode, of the fact that none of the books that they had were published past the date 2015. So it's been 30 years since nothing has been published, and they don't know anything about the outside world. So they figure, okay, 30 years, that must be when this whole phenomenon actually started. At least that's what they think at the beginning, and that's what we were led to believe at the beginning. But the fact that they didn't include that, it just comes out of nowhere with Ray mentioning that night. It's like, wait, why is he mentioning 2015? And again, that's just like it boggles my mind of the fact that they're taking out stuff from the last episode, but then adding in little bits to make you see that, oh no, they were talking about this, you just didn't see it. And it's like, well, can't you show us like just one line from Ray in the last episode would have been like, okay. I've been thinking like, okay, there were no books published past 2015 that we have, so it's obvious that this has happened for 30 years. And they could have just easily added that. It would have taken like just 1 minute, 1 extra minute, and they could have just... They didn't even have to include certain aspects of the last episode. Like, they could have taken out in the last episode Norman climbing up that tree and then falling down, to include this bit of crucial information that we actually desperately need as an audience, particularly the audience of the anime, who are just, I feel like are just going to be like, wait, where why is he picking out that date in particular? And again, at the expense of Emma's character, a lot of the dialogue is actually cut down. It's cut down to the bare minimum. I feel like that's what they're going for here, like the bare minimum, and just getting rid of all the internal dialogue. I feel like they're just getting rid of all of that. But again, it just adds so much to the complexity of the characters. The fact that we're able to get into their minds and explore what they're thinking and just get to know them rather than them speaking it out loud. We get to look inside of what the turmoil is going in with their mind, and the fact that they cut out a lot of the conversation showing that Emma's like, no, I will find a tracker, I will study Carol and make sure that I know where on the body the tracker actually is. And it just seems to be undermining Emma's character at the expense of Ray and Norman when Emma's supposed to be the main character. Now, the one thing I will praise the episode on is the conversation between Isabella and Crone when they're in Isabella's office. That is verbatim, word for word from the manga, and I'm going to praise the anime that they actually included that, because I thought they would just actually cut that bit down, but no, they actually include that because, again, it's showing the intellect on Isabella's side, but also the intellect on Crone's side, how we've got these two polar opposites of one wants to get those kids out there, find out who they are, and get them shipped off immediately, when one's like, no, I'm just gonna let it play out as it is, because they are special to me, and I have them in the grasp of my hand, and I already know who they are, and I'm just like playing them as a manipulative puppet master. So I'm really glad that they included that, and I will praise them on that. That's one of the things that I'm really glad that they included in there, like the entire conversation, pretty much in its entirety, with Isabella and Crone. Now, there were a couple of little mistakes on their part. By including the entire conversation, also adds the line in, should be easier than getting perfect scores on tests every Monday. Not every Monday, every morning. And again, that just undermines the actual reveal of the fact that Isabella and Crone are cats themselves, rather than Isabella just showing her number and just having one of the biggest surprises in the series. And I feel like people are going to pick up on that, and it's just going to be like ruined when they could have revealed it in the last episode as well, instead of adding in filler scenes with Ray just looking out of a window. That's all they needed to do. And another thing that they cut out is the pissed off look from Crone about how Isabella is trying to undermine her, and it again just adds to the complexity of characters. Like, no, Crone is psychotic, but she is psychotic with a purpose. So another thing that's cut out a little bit of is the conversation that Ray are having in terms of discussing what's going on with Crone when they're actually washing the plates in the sink, and that's just one thing that I've just noticed. Like, they're just cutting down the conversations to the bare minimum in order to rush through these chapters. I feel that this series could be really great. Like, this anime could be really great, but they are rushing it big time, and I'm not the only one that I feel is noticing that. I feel like a lot of the manga readers are actually noticing that, how they're just rushing through it to get through everything so that they can get to the escape at the end of the series, when they could have easily just had everything in and just had it as like a 25-26 episode series. But also one thing that I find like I'm like on the fence about, like whether it should have been included at this point or earlier, is the thoughts that Crone is having, because if you remember, after the conversation that she had with Isabella and the conversation that she was having with Ray and Norman, she goes into inner thoughts about her desire to overthrow Isabella and to undermine her and to basically become a mama herself. Now, in the anime, they changed that to actually after the conversation with Isabella, where they were in her office, and it's like, and Crone properly reveals that Mama's first name is Isabella, when she's like, of course, Mama Isabella. They bring this forward, and in a sense, if for the anime, I feel like that okay. In terms of like just flowing from scene to scene, I feel like, okay, it's appropriate that they did include that there. And also as well, they gave her like this really creepy like doll that looks like her, and she seems like she's talking to the doll, just to add to a more psychotic and crazy mindset that she's actually in. I was trying to find the right words to describe it there. But also as well, not only that, she's talking out loud in a room where Mama could easily just walk by and be like, okay, so she's trying to undermine me. Okay, boop, boop, boop. Hello? Yeah, Chrome's trying to undermine me here. Can you get rid of her? Which she does do later on in the series. And by the way, spoilers about that. Mama does get rid of Crone later on in the series. I don't know which episode that's going to come into play, but it might be sooner than we think. It might be episode 7 rather than episode like 10. Because I feel like if this was actually done like a decent adaptation of the anime, of the manga, I feel like where we are right now would be episode 6 rather than episode 3. Now, the one thing that actually did piss me off the most in this episode, there had to be at least one thing that pissed me off in the episode. But yeah, it's the scene where Emma is with Carol and she's actually changing her and getting her ready for bed, and trying to, but also trying to find out where the tracker is, which, in case you can't remember, is behind the ear. But that's the thing. That's not what pisses me off. The thing that pisses me off is that she's talking out loud. I mean, she's whispering, but she's talking like this. Demons. I need to find them. And Gilda is right there next to her. She's right there next to her. And it's just like, why? Why call out the inner thoughts? They could have still had it in, and it forces them to add in a little bit of filler where Gilda is actually questioning Emma on what she's talking about, and Emma's like, oh no, nothing's going on. Which again, it's just hammering in again and again and again that Gilda is picking up on these things. Now, again, I don't blame Gilda's character for this. I feel like her picking up on things is actually really understandable on her part, especially if she's noticed the change between Emma Ray and Norman. But again, to have Emma there just blurring it out loud and for Gilda to actually witness this, what's to stop Gilda from going to Mama and saying like, Emma's talking about demons and escape and protect? I'm not sure about that. But again, I feel like this is just to hammer in that Gilda may possibly be the traitor, which, spoilers, it's Ray. And that was a surprise as well, the fact that Ray just blurred that out loud. No real build up to it. It's just like, oh yeah, the traitor is me. And then that was just a surprise on their part, and they didn't have to keep hammering it in like, oh, who could be the traitor? Who could be the traitor? When Ray just blurts it out himself as well. But again, the fact that they're just saying things out loud just makes me think that they're not being as smart as they could actually be in this situation. And another thing that's come out of this scene is Gilda mentioning that Emma is really good with babies. Now, this is important for Emma's character because, as I've said previously, Emma is pretty much like how Isabella was in her youth, and it just adds foreshadowing to the conversation that's eventually going to happen between Isabella and Emma, where Isabella is recommending Emma for the position of being her mama herself, and also the fact that they cut that out just cuts out a little bit more of the fact that it establishes Emma as the mother figure and how she brings everybody together and how she's a perfect protagonist for this series, that she gives the characters hope and the sense of actually being loved and cared for without the sense of being eaten. One other thing that I did like about the episode was the fact that they didn't show Grandma at all. Like, in the manga, they showed Grandma at the bottom half of her face, but in here, they didn't show Grandma at all. She was just her voice on the other end of the conversation with Isabella. Now, I feel like that's a really good thing to have because it just adds more to the mystery of Grandma, which just proves that they can add suspenseful and mysterious things without having to shove it down our faces all the time. But if they can do it for this, why can't they do it for other things? But again, the ending to the bit which adapts the first volume is really good, and I will praise the anime on that. The fact that we get to see the Table of Demons, and one thing that I feel like is really good as well is that they replaced the Demon King's name with him. Because I feel like there was just no way they could decide how to pronounce the name or what the name actually was in this situation. So I feel like him and just referring to his and him in that context was the best move that they could have possibly gone with. Now, of course, with Volume 1 down, we move on to Volume 2. So this part of the episode covers the start of Volume 2, which is Chapter 8. Now, one thing that they do cut out of Chapter 8, which I'm really disappointed in, is this part right here with Isabella and Emma, and how Isabella is checking Emma's ear to again add it into the fact that Isabella is onto them, and she's like giving them clues like, look, I know you think you know where the tracker is, and I am going to catch you as soon as I possibly can. But the fact that they cut that bit out, it just adds a little bit more to it just takes away a little bit more to the tension that is going on with it within this series. And another thing that the anime can't get down well is just the reactions of the characters, particularly Emma's like crazy freaked out reactions. I just feel like they just can't get those reactions out. Now, I don't know whether this is to make it more realistic or make it more believable in that part, but the fact that Emma just had these crazy reactions, that was just screaming to be animated, and the fact that they didn't take advantage of that, it's just like, it's really bizarre, like particularly where Emma's reaction about is still about them being a way to break out the trackers, and I'll prove it. If I can bring it up here. Yeah, here, this one right here. Don't know if you can see it, but yeah, that one right here in the anime, it was just like, huh? It was just like a more realistic reaction, and I feel like that's what they were going for. They were going for the more realistic situation. But guys, you're in a world surrounded by demons. I think we could be a little bit unrealistic in this sense. And again, going back to Emma's reactions, another reaction that was Carl was don't know if you can see it, is that one right there with Emma getting pissed off at Ray. It was more of like, Ray, rather than Ray, like that. And again, it's just taken away from the fact that Emma, of the fact that when Emma finds out that Ray is the traitor and she's going to get pissed off, I don't feel like they're going to get that same reaction out of Emma from the manga to the anime, and I feel like, it will just take away a bit from Emma's character, like showing like, no, she's not just this bright cheery girl. She has emotions, and her emotions can get the best of her at times. And also another thing that was cool was just this one line from Emma, which is, I already know about that, which is why she had the idea to do the game of tag, because they were discussing like all the kids, and particularly the younger ones, they're not going to be able to walk very far, and they're just going to be a burden on them. And Emma was already aware of that, and the fact that they caught the line of that, I already know about that, shows that no, she's not just been like, I'm going to save everyone, I'm going to save everyone, I'm going to save everyone, and being naive about it. It shows like, no, she's really put a lot of thought into it, of the fact that there was a lot of issues surrounding this plan, and it could go south really, really fast. And the fact that they cut that line out just shows that maybe she hasn't really thought about it as much as she should have been thinking about it, which again is taken away from Emma's character of showing like, no, she's on the same level of Ray and Norman, and she has been thinking about these things. Now we get into the game of tag, which takes up the rest of the episode. This takes up the rest of episodes of chapters 8 and 9, the episode. So again, these two chapters, because they were more action oriented, I feel like they could. I feel like it was a perfect opportunity for them to just like get through them as quickly as they possibly could. Which again, I'm disappointed at, but I'm not frustrated at. I'm more frustrated about the fact that they took out a lot of the inner dialogue that was going. But again, because I think they wanted to focus more on the action and the animation rather than the actual story in this situation. So I feel like that's the reason why they just decided to cut out the inner dialogue. I mean, I would have loved to have had it, but I'm not going to be as angry at them at this point, because again, it's just repeating things that I've just said again and again and again, and I don't want to do that at this point. But the things I really will say about this is that Crone not as creepy. I don't know what this was about and whether this was intentional or not, but she's not as creepy as she could have been. Particularly when she's like, "Oh, oh, so you're playing a game of tag, may I join in? And she has that creepy smile on her face, the one that you guys know about. But the fact that she didn't have that in the anime as well, it's maybe a little bit disappointing, maybe not. And again, I can't really decide on that part. But one thing I can decide on is that they cut out a bit of Ray being shocked after noticing that Sister Crone has gone missing, and it's just like again, it's just taken away a bit from Ray's character. Like, no, he's not just this stoic, one-dimensional character. He does have emotions that can play off other people, and he does have a personality, and he can feel these other emotions rather than just being the stoic, emo type character that he's being portrayed at this moment in time. One thing that they do cut out as well is that it cuts out Emma, Ray, and Norman discussing the idea of Sister Crone playing tag, and the reason why it cuts this, the reason why I feel like this is a bad thing to cut out is because it's because they were using this in the manga to an advantage to get to know Sister Crone's weaknesses in of itself, and get to know, like, is there a way we can actually undermine her as well, showing like they're just playing the tactical game just as much as Mara and Isabella are. I feel like just cutting that bit out is just making it feel like that they're just going to like just make it like Mama and Isabella are just being these tactical masterminds, and Emma, Ray, and Norman are just going along with it at certain points. But again, I don't feel like that should have been dropped out. I feel like they should have added that bit in where it's like, no, we need to play along with her because we need to find out their weaknesses as well, just as much as they can find out our weaknesses as well. And again, Crone already knows this. So again, like I've said, a lot of the inner thoughts of Crone have been cut out of the episode. But one thing I didn't like about the old chase scene was the jazz music. I just feel like it was too lively when I feel like it should have been like really more intense than it should have been. But again, that's just a personal pet peeve of mine, and I don't know if people found the jazz music to be a little bit out of place in terms of this situation, especially with how ferocious Crone was actually being. I mean, they did get some of her reactions down, like when she was chasing Limey into that tree. I feel like they really got it down, and I feel like they just get, when she's like just get in there and getting and chasing the kids, I feel like they got her creepy, sinister, psychotic faces down really well in that situation, which again, it just makes me curious, like, why they can't do that for Emma as well in certain situations. But the one bit that I will praise them on is the bit where Crone actually finds Emma and catches her. I feel like that was a bit like, whoa, okay, that was straight right from the manga. I'm really impressed that they added that creepy face in from Crone, so I'm happy about that. But again, it was mainly just the jazz music that just like took me out of the moment in this situation. Now for the last point. So the last point is that they cut out the moment at the end of the chapter where they're talking about the possibility of it being a potential to actually kill Crone, which again takes away from a certain complexity of the characters. Like, Norman and Ray are willing to kill if it means that they're actually able to escape the farm with the kids, and they're ready to go that extra mile, rather than them just being like, no, we're goody two shoes, we can't do anything wrong. But like I said, the chase scene, that I have very little problems with. Like, it got down most of the dialogue that was needed to get down. I mean, it was just the inner thoughts that would take it down. But again, like I said, the fact that they're cutting out a lot of bits, a lot of little bits that just add so much to the characters, just makes me feel like, okay, we're gonna have them be the good guys, them be the bad guys, and there's gonna be no moral grey area. Where if they include this bit, it would be like, oh, okay, oh, wow, these kids will actually kill if they're pushed to the edge, and it would just add more to the complexity of the characters. And I know I keep saying that, but again, the fact that they keep taking stuff out, it just takes away the complexity of the characters and why they make them so fascinating and a breath away from the traditional shonen stereotypes that have often been portrayed in certain anime. Now, the one bit that they did replace it with was the discussion of the traitor, and this went right in. Carried over into the next chapter, which they've done before. Like in the first episode, they added a little bit from episode 2 onto the end of the episode. But I feel like they did that to just add on to a cliffhanger for the episode, rather than talking about actually killing killing Crow and finding a weakness in it so that it wouldn't be impossible to kill her. I feel like adding the fact that there could be a traitor on the mix, and the fact that they've just hammered in that Gilda could possibly be that traitor. I feel like they just did that just for dramatic effect to like get people coming back like, oh, there's a traitor amongst the kids. But again, that's just a personal pet peeve of mine, and the fact that they could have included that at the beginning of the next episode before they went to the credits, being like, oh, okay, this is much more interesting at this point in time. But again, that's just my opinion on the matter. But like I said, this episode didn't frustrate me as much as it did the last episode. I feel like the things that just frustrated me about the last episode was the fact that they cut out episode 5 and the cut out the reveal of Isabella's number, and the fact that they didn't include that here is just going to cause even more problems when we get further down the line. Now, I don't know if we'll get the number in the next episode, and if we do, I'll be like, oh, finally, but it's too little too late at this point, like I said in the last chapter. But anyway, guys, like I said, this episode didn't piss me off as much as I thought it was going to do. Like I said, there were some really good bits added in, and I'm really glad that they kept in a lot of the bits that needed to actually be kept in. But again, it's just those little bits that they took out that, again, it's just taken away from the complexity of the characters. And I feel like if they had more episodes to work with, this is a perfect example of them actually including everything, because I feel like they wanted to include more stuff, but they just were restricted by the time that they actually had. Not in terms of the time of the length of the episode, just the time of the length of the actual series as well. But anyway, guys, what do you think? Let me know. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. And the review of the chapter 120 will be coming out later in the next week or so. Because, oh boy, that's a chapter that I really want to get into, particularly with what happened at the end of it.